I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision.
I want you to hear me, please. You have harnessed fear for political purposes, and only love can cast that out. So sir, I have a feeling you know what you're doing. I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on that field, and sir, love you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unpopular Front, the podcast for the left and loud. I'm Ben Yudishin, your host. Today on the episode, I am having on another one of my IRL buds, Ari Robbins, a great friend and very smart person, and we're talking about these presidential debates that have started, and we're talking about the first few. We try to get to all the candidates. I don't think we actually do, sorry, Yang Gang, but it was great to talk to Ari. They're one of my best friends, and I love being able to share this with the world. So before we get to that, just a little bit on these debates. I think you're supposed to say who won and who lost, because after all, just like how Ben Shapiro will eviscerate and destroy people in debates, debates are not meant to be a chance to exchange opinions and sort of different perspectives and different sort of studies and sort of rationally work out things. No, it's a competition. I thought that in general, that debate was really more just sort of showing sort of the general direction that the party is going. That rhetorically, at least, obviously all of this is just rhetoric. They are at least giving lip service to some things that are in the direction of what I and probably you, dear listener, would want, which is good. But it's not actually them doing it. And as you can see a few days after the second debate, some of these signals and, rhetorical shifts are not always going to be backed up if you ask them a few days later about the policy, as we learned with Kamala Harris with healthcare. Again, sort of this kind of vagaries around sort of the line in the sand that's being drawn about Medicare for all, versus what they say that they support versus what they actually support when you ask them a second question. But the second debate, speaking of Kamala Harris, obviously she did very well because she's a very good politician. She's good on TV. And that helps. And I think it was interesting to me that neither Warren or Bernie, who did fine, Bernie did about a B, didn't really attack Joe Biden. Even Bernie, who was literally, I think, right next to him. Maybe that's why. The main person who attacked Joe Biden and needed to sort of take him down a bit was Kamala Harris. And she used sort of the very low-hanging fruit of Joe Biden's history around issues like school integration and busing to highlight, based off of her own literal biography, how she herself benefited from that. So for a little bit of context on the issue of busing, I think it's important to note how the issues of the civil rights era changed and sort of as, after we had legal precedents and we had enforcement regimes and there was powers given to courts and municipalities and federal government to basically try to work towards a society ostensibly that is more equal, where, outcomes are similar for people regardless of their racial background. And the issue of busing was sort of one of those early issues where it started to move away directly from being like, this is sort of me, grievous white person with a grievance, saying that I don't like that the ends are getting power. This was sort of a way to kind of turn it into a procedural issue and obscure it. And I don't think there's a better example to sort of show where this was from one of the people who was really instrumental in this rhetorical change of white supremacy in American politics, and that is Lee Atwater. Here is a infamous interview from Lee Atwater on the Southern Strategy.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this. You start out in 1954
We're quoting you
by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff.
So in the debate with Joe Biden, in his attempt to parlay, to do a little rhetorical little shift, he thought that it would be a good idea in the much more multicultural, much more progressive Democratic Party of 2019 to use language that was barely even used in the Democratic Party of 1972, and that was speak of states' rights as a way to say that he was progressive on civil rights issues and integration issues. Now, there is a critique that I have heard. I don't know if it's correct, and maybe it's more of like a broader thing about the idea of busing as a solution. There's something to be said about using schools as the primary way to try to enforce egalitarian ends that can't fully be addressed because so much of this still comes back to funding, right? And as I've spoken about multiple times on this show, the fact that schools and communities are funded based off of things as lopsided as property taxes is a huge problem. So while there is absolutely, you want people of all backgrounds to have access to the same materials, that's why I'm a socialist, the problem with this idea from the critique that I've heard is that it reinforces this idea that the way to succeed in America is just by a proximity to whiteness, versus maybe being like, oh, the white schools have these resources which help the kids in their education and development because that's where the money is. It's not about, like a certain sort of essentialized nebulous ideas, like just getting more people near white people, so it does raise the question that busing itself is really just a halfway measure. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the school in fucking 90210, the public school there, gets the same kind of funding that the school in Flint, Michigan does. And that's the change that we really need. And that might be a more radical step, honestly. And maybe, my entire high school experience was founded on the legal precedent of busing. So, I benefited from it in my own way. It does raise that question. Kamala Harris, very good on TV. She had some lines that were ready. She had some line about a food fight. She's okay. I definitely, though, am worried about how she sort of talks out of her two sides of her mouth on things like healthcare when she raises her hand so quickly to raise her hand with Bernie. But then the next day, she equivocates on what she means by private health insurance. It becomes a bit of a problem. And I also think it's telling about, and this is kind of, I think, where people thought this would be going before a bunch of the blips like Beto for a few weeks, who's done, and Buttigieg, who I still don't think has a lot in him, and all these different people coming in and getting some heat and then disappearing. From the start, people were saying, Harris does have a good chance, and I think that's right. And it's interesting to me that she, of all the top polling candidates, is the one who went the most after Biden. Because she, soon after the debate, went to a huge fundraiser with Wells Fargo vice presidents. So she, in many ways, has a lot. Like what Biden has and is holding on to is a lot of what she wants and she needs to win. That she needs to get that sort of more, let's say, sort of progressive business people types to come around to her. And she needs that because they're still, even with some of the possible rat fucking going on with people from Third Way trying to be like rah-rah Warren, I still think that Harris, it seems like, is the one who's trying to soak up that stuff that Joe Biden has and be the actual sort of establishment, for lack of a better term, favorite. So I think it's setting up the next stage of the campaign, and that will be interesting. It would be a great shame, though, if I didn't talk, though, about the person who really, I think, really took America by storm. Because I think it's time that we open up our third eye. That we know that there's more out there than just what you see in front of you. We're all in a vibration, feeling the energy of our ancestors and our past lives, knowing that love is the force that binds us together, and that the orb will set us free. How about Marianne Williamson, y'all? Marianne Williamson, I liked her, I have to say. Now, admittedly, you, listener, may not have one of these, but I sure as hell do. I got a new age mom. I think there's probably a lot of people who have boomer or maybe even like older Gen X parents who, their mom maybe, dabbled into Reiki therapy, or maybe they had a yoga studio. I mean, my mom literally did. I love you, Mom. I think all this stuff's cool. And it's important, though, to recognize that there are other disciplines and other ways of getting involved in politics. And I think being a miracle worker is a sadly underrepresented factor for a path to power in the 21st century. I mean, first off, let's get real and say that Marianne Williamson had better answers and a more structural critique of our immigration system and foreign policy than Bernie did. And Bernie's like getting better on that. He had some bad stuff about immigration, blah, 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 before, but like he's drawn the connection before in speeches and media. But she, on the stage, said that maybe a reason why we're having a, quote, immigration crisis is because of our own foreign policy choices and empowering bad people to help capital. She kind of said that, and I thought that was great. So, everyone making fun of Marianne and her good vibes, I need to tell you that your third eye is not just closed, it's sewn shut.
Yeah. It was the blush.
Yeah, well, sweetie, I'm not sure exactly what you wanted to talk about, but I thought we should check in and so everyone can know what's going on with Ari.
I have so many opinions.
I know. I feel like we're due.
I have so many thoughts and feelings. And I was really just hoping we could go down one by one, at least
every of the major.
Even or some of the subs, because I have like some comments about.
Yeah, they're like funny. This is the only time we're ever going to see them, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like you might as well. You kind of have to, right?
It's like, yeah, you have to.
Like, when are we going to talk about John Delaney again? Like, he's already been booed at the California convention.
Why does he look like he's in the middle of like sexually assaulting someone all the time?
Because he's a CEO. He's a business guy. That's why.
He looks like the least trustworthy person
I wouldn't trust him.
I've ever seen in my life. Like, whoever tested him to run as a candidate was out of their mind.
It's because it was himself. Because he's just a rich guy who barely won a congressional seat once and then left politics. And now he's running for president.
He's really bad. And his whole thing is bipartisanship, but he's not even well-spoken.
No.
And so
the only way you can do that is with Obama. And that didn't even actually create partisan.
He's just
he's a zero.
He is creepy. He just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, he's a bad one. Well, I guess, what would you want to talk about? Do you want to go candidate to candidate?
I think so. I think we just did
Dia Laney. The only thing that's left is, if you know these two comedians, he's if John Mulaney and Rob Delaney melded into one.
I keep thinking his name is Mulaney.
And I love those two dudes, so I would think the idea of the two of them together would be great, but neither one's good. No, he's terrible. He's also, as someone who is coming to terms with the fact that I might be balding, I am balding. I mean, my dad was completely bald when he was my age, so, like, I actually got a lot more than he did, so I'm doing good.
It's cool. You know, a lot of people face that issue, and so you're not alone. I just want you to know.
I need that Rogaine. Life. Yeah. Regardless... Not good bald guy representation.
Terrible bald guy representation.
I'm just saying.
And he has like the most beady eyes. He just looks like he slammed a Red Bull like right before he went on stage, and then.
Speaking of people who kind of look like they slammed a Red Bull or maybe something else, what about that? Our governor. Our governor was on stage. Your boss.
Freaking out.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
He's adorable. Like
Jay Inslee.
Harmless, honestly. Right now, like our legislature, they're super progressive and like, yeah, there's like some corporatists in there, but like they're honestly like kind of the best you can hope for in like an electoral system with a bunch of
It's because we live in a bourgeois fake state, right? Like this is the best you can get.
Right? Like he signed. I met Jay Inslee when he signed the Assistant Attorney General bill for giving us the right to collectively bargain. Mm-hmm. And actually, somebody that I went to Evergreen with is now his lead policy person on labor.
Real deal.
And his talking points were very pro-worker, very pro-union, and pretty thoughtful, I thought. And I was kind of impressed. I was like,
I kind of thought he was, I mean, okay, there's the two sides of Jay Inslee, right? There's that his policy, the stuff he's laying out is good. And, like, he's, like, presenting for the left, right? So, like, him being there just shows that, there's more people who are, like, on the left-ish side of the party, right? But his presentation was not great, right?
Well,
so what do you think about that?
I think he's a cutie pie.
Yeah.
His underbite. He's so tall. I thought he had great colors on. And he doesn't have a whole lot of substance. He's not that smart.
Is that the thing that he's just like, he's one of those guys, he's like if like a like guy was like, what was his job before? I feel like he was like a high school principal or something.
Yeah, he was almost always like a politician.
Okay, so he's just one of those dudes.
Federal politics for a long time.
He's just like a little like robot basically, and he got programmed by some decent people. But
he's
it's like
a great example of white privilege. Like he's just a
exactly right. Yeah, like fucking Stacey A.
Like
oh my god,
tiny example of white privilege. You're like, why does? I mean, but you know, I'll stick to Inslee on this one. I do appreciate him. You know, I remember even in 2016 talking about with people, smart people who knew a lot more than I did about climate change and as a policy issue, right? Being like, this is never going to make the federal stage. There's just no incentive because it's such a long-term issue.
Right.
It doesn't have short payback for candidates to invest in like climate change issues.
Right.
There's not there's not a PAC that's paying them for climate change. And so it's just not going to get in there. And he really, that's everybody knows that's his thing. That's like his only thing. It's like Yang with $1,000. Like,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Broken record, but he makes everybody talk about it. And like, that's kind of neat.
You have to have someone present there just as like a vehicle of shame, right?
He's just a little reminder.
Like, he's like, remember, I looked like I did coke and then thought about my grandkids and got really focused on climate change.
This really odd speech impediment that's like kind of adorable.
As a guy with a speech impediment, I actually find a little bit of
it's charming.
Yeah, it's he's a little more real. I thought he was more blue collar than he actually is because of that speech impediment.
He's not. He also like. It was funny because in the first debate, he talks a little about, they give him a great question. He gets a chance to talk a little bit about climate change. And he pretty much says nothing, and then says like, he was like, we should do what we did in Washington, and I was like, what did we do in Washington? Like, I
like
live
had
here,
like some voter initiatives fail,
but we have like a coal mine moving here, like straight up, because I can tell you that the
Mount St. Helens was just the beginning of the mountaintop removal project.
Well, like we're moving a train line out here to basically set up like some sort of environmental wasteland, like in half of our state, and it would be like the biggest coal processing plant in the country.
Yeah, but will that be where all the Trump people? Isn't that sort of the hidden thing? There's sort of that east and west kind of dichotomy in the state.
The Trump people live, but if he's so big on climate change, like he should be talking about the issues that are in his backyard. I mean, or in what he's done about them or tried to do about them.
This is what I've been hearing about Inslee. Yeah, that he's kind of like he's presenting well, but his record, he hasn't actually done that much.
In fact, they voted down the carbon tax here.
Yeah.
And you know what? Jay Inslee didn't fucking go out and try to rally support for it.
Exactly.
Like, he's just like all these other folks. He's a political opportunist who like rolls with the tide, whichever way it's going.
Yeah. All right. So what about you brought him up, Pete Buttigieg, the first major gay candidate.
We'll go right into it.
Can we talk about his? Because this is the thing that bothered me. He never actually said gay, or he never said queer, or he never said anything. He
doesn't
just
say anything.
And
words.
To me, it feels kind of like an almost like a grosser version, because like, Obama like actually spoke about like the black experience, even though like in his presidency, he sort of, some of the times it seemed like he would sort of use the fact that he was black to be like, I can't address that because then it's like too politically charged, which is like a bullshit reason. And it's just like, I don't know, like whatever. It's not like they didn't call him like from Africa, but
it's like already being racist too, dude.
Exactly. And Pete Buttigieg feels that way to me.
That's cool shit.
Yeah. Pete Buttigieg feels that way to me about gay folks.
That's interesting.
He never said gay. And I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know, sort of how do you sort of see him in that frame? Because there's the whole other side of him, which is that he's just a dork. But
didn't he like invite Chick-fil-A to like come to South Bend? And, like he's just not like, he's a homeowner, like proto-human,
right?
Like, homeowner, and honestly, I think he's a better representation of the like sort of quote millennial generation than he is of anybody else, because he is like the ultimate like elitist millennial who like only cares about like development and tech and like getting more like he's just so short-sighted in everything that he does, like all his policies, everything he's done as mayor in South Bend, like everything I've read about him, it's just like short-sighted, like tech fucking like chasing, just like yimby, like just like a gross ass yimby.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It makes me so disgusted that I'm like, yes, you're also gay, but that doesn't surprise me. Like you're like this white gay guy and
who was in the military.
So you've got like this whole shtick.
Yeah.
And
again,
like,
it kind of feels like he like has to be so macho in a way too, while also like he also has to be so neoliberal. Like he is like, to me, the prototypical like millennial neoliberal candidate is gonna focus on stuff like this.
Yeah,
like he is the next generation. He's the next generation's
Bill next generation Clinton. Politician. Absolutely.
Yeah, like, and like it's interesting to see how that works
in there.
Yeah,
this guy and all his little friends from like Harvard, where the hell he went.
Yeah,
they're all gonna come and like take over this country, and they're gonna all talk completely perfectly about, they're gonna speak the lingo of the like he is that. He is the like
they'll have like a Tumblr based, Twitter based like SJW speech writer or whatever,
And he could turn on a dime. Like he could turn on a dime. Not that the rest of them can't, but like he could. I was reading some analysis after the debate about how he did this really. He was the first one to sort of do this little trick about Medicare for all, where he was like, I'm for Medicare for all, I'm for a public option, and I'm for like not restricting private health insurance.
So you're not for it.
So like Medicare for all is like a piece of legislation.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't include those other two things.
No.
Exactly. You're not for Medicare for all.
Right.
But, like, it was basically the analysis. I wish I could remember.
It's like if you capitalize it, then he's lying. But if you don't, he's just for the concept of Medicare as a shorthand for medical care for all.
Right.
You know?
The article I read, I wish I could remember the author, but I'm sure they know who they are, said that, what he was doing is basically signaling to the public that he's for Medicare for all, which everybody loves and they don't know why.
Yes.
And then he's also, including me, and then he's also signaling to his donor base that don't worry, like I would never do anything to like jeopardize private health insurance.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And it's like, that's exactly what, and he did that a lot. Like he was really good at doing that a lot. And I got to tell you, I work with a lot of like basic normies, and sorry, I'm letting my dog out. A lot of basic
crackers gotta go.
Who are like, oh my God, who's that guy? They're still doing that thing where they're like, it's like they just saw him on like
Rachel Maddow or something.
Men's Health magazine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Some piece of meat, and they're like some piece of lib meat.
He is lib meat, and
Wonder Boy piece of shit. Like they're like so enchanted by him, and I'm like, what do you like about him? And they're like, he just said stuff real smart, and I'm like, who the fuck are you?
What does that mean?
Like people actually. I mean. I just can't get my head around this. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like I don't know everything, but like I can't believe that in this day and age, people are still just voting on like whose face they liked and like little wordsies they liked the bestest.
Right. Like
that's the kind of my smart ass coworker, my smart, intelligent people.
Yeah, I know. People with like, postgraduate degrees.
All I had to do was tell them 3 facts about Pete Buttigieg.
It's so easy.
I said he worked for McKinsey. Go look them up.
Oh, yeah. That to me is already a fucking no-no.
I dated somebody whose brother worked there.
Yeah, they're like, the worst.
He was also garbage.
Oh, sorry. You kind of went out, but I think it's okay. I just heard you say he's a piece of garbage.
He was a piece of garbage. He was also like one of these super libby, like wide-eyed, like progressives who he went around and was consulting with countries that already had some sort of form of public health insurance to try to get them. If you want your public health care to be more successful, more efficient, you should like refuse to pay for certain types of things for certain types of people.
Oh, strategy.
That was like his thing that he did.
Wow.
I was like, total dirtbag.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing I knew about McKinsey before, and then now I know that they, helped come up with the marketing plan for like Purdue Pharma, who like people with opioids.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, McKinsey's like almost like I don't know. Like I'm sure there's some academic term for it, but like they almost feel like they're like one of those like corporations that like they're almost like an arm of the State Department, or like the State Department is an arm of them. Like they're just so massive and
involved with a lot of governments.
Yeah, exactly.
To the point where I'm sure they have a lot of like former lobbyists and government workers that work for them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they're terrible. What else do you tell them? Do you mention the leasing issues in South Bend? That's been my go-to.
Don't, because the worst one that there's two issues about that I've heard that are the worst. One that he refused to deal with the violence against African American people, like perpetrated by the police force. Yeah. The other is that he fired, I think, an African American leader.
Yeah, the police.
And then there was a bunch of African American police officers who left the police force. But, 2 of those things are like all about how like cops deserve respect, which I don't believe.
Right, yeah.
But I do believe that people shouldn't be fired on the basis of race.
Right, yeah. Or for just like having like a slightly different strategic
I'm like, don't you love cops? Like they were mean to these cops because they were black. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to talk about cops.
Fair enough.
Violence is like a real thing, but he the people that I talked to specifically said that they liked how he responded to the question that
I
he
heard that too, that it was like, oh, like, sure, he did this bad thing, but he had a good quip about it later, so doesn't that make it okay? It's like an Aaron Sorkin movie. Like, he is the most West Wing dude.
Yes, and I will say, I don't actually give a shit about how, quick his responses, or whatever, but obviously other people do.
Yeah.
But then I would say, look even broader than that, which is like obviously a huge issue, but look beyond that, like the people of color in that community, that is it is 30 to 40% African American.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in that community, those folks are not pleased with him. No. And it's not just because of policing, it's because of gentrification.
Exactly.
And then if you look in the Central District here in Seattle, this is at least my point of comparison about gentrification. It's like gentrification ramps up like so quickly. Like, he basically opened the doors to tech and development and developers, and that was his whole thing. And so if you focus so much on this like rejuvenation model, what you're doing, what that really is, like you're basically saying out loud, like, we got to get rid of all these poor people, all these people of color, and you often will end up with a dynamic of police violence in those situations.
Absolutely.
That is not unusual.
No.
Like, that Central District is like.
No. I mean, it's in a way, it has a sort of like, I mean, I don't know, maybe just capitalism. This is my pet theory, is that capitalism has so many parallels with colonialism, because it basically is just the, like, systematizing of that. But it's the same thing, right? Like, it's just sort of taking over a place. It's just through increasing the cost of living so much and making it to where people have to leave. And yeah, it's a huge problem. And honestly, it's funny to me that you sort of bring up how the sort of like YIMBY thing, because that's why I'm skeptical of some YIMBYs. Like, this is the exact reason why.
Because they're sort of like, they don't, I mean, it's a racist way. It's like a racist idea.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's one of those moments where by trying to avoid race and trying to make it not about race at all, they make it into something so much more racist.
Well, and it's like, that's how you hurt poor communities. That's how you hurt communities of color.
Yeah.
It's like by building housing in places where, like, black folks, people of color used to live.
Right.
That only white people. Like, that is how you do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what downtown rejuvenation means.
Yeah.
It means, like, we got to get the white people back here because of whatever happened during what is missing here that we needed to make it rejuvenated. And I mean, he even had that 1,000 homes in 1,000 days thing that was like, really, like, I heard some soft critiques of it, even from like lefties who were like, yeah, it didn't work out very well and he ended up destroying houses of black people. I was like, what? Like, that's so and then immediately I realized what that was. It's like, okay, so I mean, I think again about homes here in this area that are falling apart, and like, there's black families that have been living there. They own their house outright. They they're clinging on by their teeth to pay for property taxes, and like their yards are overgrown because like their sons are in jail.
Right, because of other aspects of violence all around us.
And then they get, under his plan, like they get ticketed and fined, and if they can't clean up their house, then it gets like condemned. And that's what 1,000 homes in 1,000 days is.
Exactly.
Which is like, that's disturbing to me that like...
Yeah, that we should be celebrating this.
But that's like that was like his thing. And even like the people who support him, I mean, I read some articles about like, that were, mainstream media that sort of just said, yeah, it didn't work out as well as he thought. Some of the African-American like residents complained that it was disproportionately like targeting their neighborhoods. And it's like, no shit, like...
But when you say it that way, it sounds like the kind of thing that someone can brush off like, yeah, I mean, that's just how it is everywhere. We live in a racist society, so whatever.
You piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, he's terrible. But I mean, maybe he's trying to be vice president, but he actually kind of seems like the kind of guy that he's just doing this. He caught on, but he's just doing this so he can have like a presence and then eventually like run for governor and then run for president when he's 50, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like he's actually like a serious candidate. He just is polling well.
Like him, even though he like keeps getting elected mayor of South Bend by like huge margins, but it's probably just because they don't have anybody else going there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the 4th biggest town in Indiana. Speaking of mayors, what did you think about Bill de Blasio?
I don't even think he was involved in the debate.
What? I loved Bill de Blasio.
He said like 5 words.
Yeah, but it's true. Maybe, you know, part of me is the fact that I was expecting him to be straight up, like, bad, like, not good at this. And he, like, at least, like, seemed better than the average no-name also ran. I mean, he is, like, a very powerful person.
More on the Julian Castro side of the spectrum than he was on the, like, hoop and lop or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Side of the white, like, not that Julian Castro was that, but like side of the random, like, underdog political spectrum.
Yeah. Like, he's not a joke. I mean, and honestly, I thought he was gonna be. So apparently, his name is not actually de Blasio. It wasn't his birth name. He changed it to his stepdad's name, I think, to help him in politics, because de Blasio in New York might hold a little bit more cachet than, like, Warren, you know?
Interesting.
Just a theory of mine. Maybe it's some weird Italian race science. So he didn't really bring up much for you?
No.
What about when he was like, my son who's black? Did you catch that moment? See, I've known about Bill de Blasio and I followed his career.
I mean, how can you not love that? Like, that's good.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, okay. Fair enough. He just seems
Here
just
we
like
are,
another,
Bill.
like, Gen X hipster parent who, like, kind of sold out, right?
Yeah, he's like not that interesting.
He's like the guy that'll, like, brag about, like, yeah, I saw REM in 1989. You know? That wasn't even when they were, like, underground, so fuck off, you know?
No, he's like...
He's boring.
He's pretty boring.
I'm trying to think who else was on that debate.
Tim Ryan.
Yeah, all those dudes. I cannot keep them straight. The only thing I know about Tim Ryan is that he ran for Speaker of the House from the right against Nancy Pelosi. It's literally the only thing I know. I still could not pick him out in a lineup.
I wouldn't be able to pick him up in the lineup, and I just watched the debate.
Yeah.
He just, like, wouldn't stop talking about... He was trying to like run as George W. Bush. Like, he was
Democratic Party.
But, like, he was like, you know how G-Dub did that, like, folksy thing? And, like, everybody was like, maybe that'll do that folksy.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, so then he tried to do that. He was doing that folksy thing where he was like, we need somebody to represent the working people, the blue-collar people.
Yeah.
And everything was, like, back harping on that, and it's like it's so much pandering.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, those folks are not watching you on the debate. Like, you either have name recognition or you don't. They don't have time to turn on the fucking TV.
Yeah. Also, like, I don't really think that working... I don't know. To me, that actually kind of plays on a sort of bullshit narrative that you notice in, like, main media. That if you just read, like, a bunch of, like, leftist shit like I do, I don't, like... You know, like, it's understood that the working class is not a white male monolith, but whenever people talk about it that way, they sort of present it that way, right?
No, totally. I mean, and he did talk about, like, queer people and, like, people of color as, like, part of the working class in, like, one sentence, which was nice, but, like, he's not a reasonable person.
No, he's not going to be the guy. He's not the reborn Eugene Debs. Sorry, folks.
He is not. Yeah, he is not the working class hero.
I'm trying to think of other boring white, like, middle-aged.
Oh, God, my favorite was
Swalwell. Yeah, Swalwell.
He just kept saying, like, you need to pass the torch.
Yeah, exactly.
And he looked like a failed abortion.
He does have a weird little, like, blockhead. He has a real Lego dude look.
Yeah, Caitlin said he looked like a Lego guy from the Lego movie.
Yeah, he's, I don't even know what his politics were. Because
he's one of those guys who
just
ended
postured
up
the whole
probably
time.
losing any supporters that he could have had by going on the...
Right. Yeah, they're like
so annoying.
Yeah, zero, complete zero. I believe he was the youngest who was there. He's younger than Buttigieg, so he's the future.
Every time I say Buttigieg, I have to just roll my eyes.
I know Buttigieg, Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
I know Matt Christman got banned on Twitter for calling him butt chug because people said it was homophobic, but I don't know.
As a trans guy, I think that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I don't know. The idea that anything related to butts makes it gay. I don't know. It just seems it's like one of those.
It seems homophobic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those things where, like, you saying it's homophobic is the thing that's actually homophobic. Like, whoa, I hadn't even made that connection, but fair enough. So we did.
Can we talk about Cory Booker?
Yes, there you go. That's who I was
Cory
missing.
Booker did really well.
Right?
Cory good, and I don't know why everybody's like Kamala. Like everybody wants Kamala. Like I feel like their politics and their like sort of vibe, like other than the fact that she's a cop prosecutor, like I actually like way more than I like her.
Oh my god, totally, yeah.
I don't know why people who like Kamala aren't like liking Cory Booker way more now, because they sort of like have that same like ability to like make a beautiful speech.
Yeah,
Kamala did really good too.
She did very well. She's really good in those circumstances. She's like theatrical just to the right amount, right?
Totally. But I thought Cory Booker was too. Like, I thought he did a really good job. And he also, like, I love that we forgot to talk about Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, Tulsi.
I love Tulsi Gabbard.
She got a good look, right? She
sounds like he's trying not to say something like racist or homophobic all the time.
Exactly.
Like,
classic Samoan racism, am I right?
He kept talking she kept being like, as somebody who served in the armed forces.
Yeah, she brought up being a vet too much.
She was like, I served in the military. And then she would get like so indignant, like when anybody else talked about it, she would be like, when I was in the military, no, we signed up to fight Al-Qaeda.
Yeah. So
calm down, Tulsi.
Yeah. There's a lot of drama around Tulsi Gabbard, especially on the line. There's like multiple critiques of her, and there's also her weird fans. She has big fans, so I think just one of her. I think that's got to be part of it. I'm sorry, it's kind of gross.
I mean, she has those streaks are great.
That gray streak really, I felt like that was her like being like, I gotta show that I'm like young, but I'm like, wizened, But
all we talked about was the military, and it was so weird and inappropriate. Yeah. And then, like, she never answered any questions except for anything that she just made it about them. Even when they asked her about LGBTQ people, she was like, "Yeah, I liked them when they were in the military."
Exactly. Like, yeah, anything.
That's what I was gonna say about Cory Booker. Cory Booker was like, "No, Tulsi, no bueno, c'est pas enough." Like, and then he said, He talked about trans women of color immediately after that. Like as soon as somebody said LGBTQ, he said, intersections, motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. Jackpot. Ding, 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 ding.
I mean, but that's true.
It's true.
Trans women are being fucking murdered, and like nobody even mentioned trans people except for when Julian Castro accidentally called trans people who get pregnant trans women.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem, but it's backwards. But okay.
Well, he slipped, because he's confused about his talking points.
Right. He still has a tiny politician brain. Like all these people do, right?
Yeah.
They can't. They can remember like 80 lines, and that's about it.
Yeah, but like I thought that was cool, and like obviously like Cory Booker's not my candidate.
No, he had a bad answer on Iran. He was the only guy who was like I wouldn't go back into the Iran deal, which is like a fucking layup.
You know why though? Because he spoke more fucking words at that debate than anybody else up there.
Oh, really? You think you had a sample
shit like that?
Yeah.
Because they were like everybody who would sign up for it. Raise your hand, and then he didn't raise his hand, and he was like, "Can I respond?" And they're like, "Well, you have to respond."
Yeah. You see, I just thought it was sort of like him being like a bit of like an APAC Democrat, but I could see that too. Just him, just being like,
want to talk.
Yeah, exactly. Like any chances to have my big, bald, shiny head. By the way,
that shit.
Yeah. By the way, I am dating Rosario Dawson.
But I thought Cory Booker did a really good job, and I was surprised that he didn't get like more. I was surprised. I guess the thing that I found like comparable between him and Kamala was just like the fact that both of them owned their debate a bit.
Yeah, totally.
And he didn't get the bump that she got.
And I think it's because he had the first debate. That must have affected it. But Warren...
got Elizabeth Warren, who we did not talk about.
Yeah, Warren and Sanders, I think, kind of both gave kind of a similar performance where it was like, yeah, we know that they're the best, and they were both like the like progressive stalwart on their debate, and they didn't really get involved in any of the drama, so they didn't get a lot of attention.
They didn't. Yeah, that was maybe the goal.
Yeah, it seems like they both had that strategy.
Certainly didn't like. I was expecting her to like be more of a technocrat, given all of her plans and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to plan.
Right, yeah. I think that, to me, that was good. Because
definitely.
Because that technocrat shit and that, like, that sort of effect, there's been, like, because I don't know, it's weird. I'm of two minds about Warren's candidacy. I really like her, and I think she's really good. And it's mainly in that there's been sort of like an attempt at a cult of personality to be built around her based off of her being the most technocrat person ever. And I think emphasizing that is actually really bad for her candidacy because I don't actually think that's who she is completely.
And I don't think
it's not what people want.
Has to vote about that.
No.
Like there's a very small like sliver of the left that like wants that. And like not far left, but like left of center.
Yeah.
Who like want somebody who's like gonna give them the answer for everything.
Right.
But you have to know that that's completely theoretical, and like there's so many things a president can't do. And you know, having a plan for something is one thing, but like you have to just basically like, you know, nominate people to be in executive branches,
right?
Executive branch, like administrative agencies, and like you have to write a few executive orders, but Obama taught us you can't write too many,
right?
And then you have to deal with like international stuff and like sign us onto treaties, and then get Congress to like approve all of them. Like, you know, that's kind of it,
right?
And so like all the plan stuff, like it's good to have a few things I think that or make it really clear about what you stand for,
right?
So like what we're because when we vote for president, sort of like I was thinking a little bit about this, it's sort of like our mandate, like if electoral, like in the ideal of electoral politics, right? Like people are voting and saying like putting their stamp on something and saying like this is the kind of politics we expect out of the country for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And so if you're just saying like that to a bunch of little plans that can't get passed because she's not in the legislature.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me,
she's setting herself up for failure.
Yeah, exactly. And it was interesting though that she kind of pivoted, and I kind of think that she must have like gotten a lot of like in her campaign got a lot of the same criticism that we've been saying. And because there was like two things that she did that I noticed. She did not emphasize the plan stuff. And then she talked about sort of having movements, right? And she talked about sort of that like ground game sort of outside of politics kind of pressure, which has basically been the main sort of thrust of this Bernie camp. And it's interesting that she was like, I'm going to do that too. And that she is recognizing, I think, the fact that that is true, that if just because you elect someone, you got to make sure that it happens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the harder part. And that's the part that people have to care about after the election. Yeah. And I think at least noting that is like kind of like with a lot of the healthcare answers, like it's this kind of lip service at the moment, but at least it's like putting, I mean, all this is just rhetoric anyways. So it's putting that rhetorical, you know, thing on the board. Yeah. But I'm trying to think, was there anyone else? There was Beto, who did so bad. Wow. Beto is a joke. Beto is
looks like a creepy guy.
Yeah.
Standing in the corner, like every time the camera would pan to somebody, all the other candidates seemed to get the message that you're supposed to look straight forward.
Right.
And he was like staring at whoever was talking.
Como se dice?
So weird.
Yeah.
And like this fucking Spanish pandering was weird.
Yeah.
Oh, we barely talked about Julian Castro.
Well, that I kind of wanted to bring the two of them up together because it was a bit of a Texas showdown.
So he was awesome.
He did pretty well. It was the best I've ever seen him, and I've seen a fair bit of him. So
I loved his answer to that fucking guy. Was like, what would you say to people who are building houses in areas that are not like sustainable, like not like that are some sort he was talking, I think, about like New Orleans, like people building in flood zones or something,
like to help like with like insurance through the government.
He was like, what's your plan to like deal with that? What do you say to people who are doing that when the federal government's telling them what to do? And he said, I kind of think that's like not the bulk of the issue.
Yeah, that's like the fucking thing that people always do with like welfare fraud. Like, yeah, it happens, but it's like the amount of fucking bullshit you have to go through, it's not even worth it.
Right. And I loved his answer to that. I thought it was like, I think that politicians should give that answer a little bit more.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, like I don't know, dude. I think he was running
the tone for some of the immigration stuff and made Beto look like a fucking dumb idiot.
Oh my God, Beto was so bad. Exactly, like Beto couldn't like whatever. There's some bunch of numbers I forgot. It's like 1825 C4 or whatever section of some bill that Castro was right about should be repealed because it's like the whole like legal argument that's being used hinges on this to allow basically the detention centers and to criminalize crossing the border and to give them
right. So it's the difference between having it be a civil penalty situation and a criminal situation.
Because you can't be held for a civil penalty.
That bill, like there's a section in that bill that makes it a something that's criminal,
right?
And Beto was like, well, what about, like, we need it to be a criminal issue because we need to, like, prevent sex trading, so, like, sex slave, whatever.
Like, you can't do that in other, like that's worth this. Like, there aren't other ways to address that issue, if that's even an issue.
It's already in the bill that if you are committing a actual crime when you cross the border, then it becomes a criminal issue. I think that's what they were arguing about.
Yeah, so to me that just sort of felt like Beto is just so cautious. And you want to talk about that sort of white male privilege of like that sense of just like that, like I don't really know what I want to do. I'm just gonna like, and I'm gonna like kind of have my feet in both places. But by doing that, he just like Texas politics is not the same as national politics, particularly in this Democratic primary. And you're gonna have to fucking make a decision. I was shocked at how bad he did. Ugh,
like you don't get a haircut before your debate.
Yeah, at least I'm sure Bernie at least combed his hair.
Right. Well, Bernie,
his 4 hairs, but. Yeah. Castro was good. I see him maybe kind of trying to be someone's Veep. He seems like a Bernie Veep.
Or like getting appointed somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, he's already been Secretary of HUD, I think. So maybe run for governor. I don't know. I see it happening for him. So I'm trying to think. I'm sure there were other people, but can we go on to the second debate? Because
let's move on.
I really want to talk about Marianne Williams.
I mean,
I need to talk about Marianne because Marianne... You know my mom. So I feel like this is like there's obviously, and this makes sense for her, there's like some psychological thing. I'm probably drawn to her, or I have like some attraction, not just sort of like magnetically, like I just, because part of me wants to like say like you're a fucking dumb hippie, you piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
But every time I think about what she's basically doing, it could be a lot worse, people. So there have been some people who have been like really mean to her, honestly, and I will not stand. I'm a member of Manning's for Marianne, and if you come for me, I will destroy you with my army of love.
You know what?
What do you think about her?
More power to her. I mean, my dad wrote me that cute ass email, and he was like, she's not wrong.
She isn't wrong.
And, like, she's not wrong. And, like, I heard her interview on Chapo.
Yeah, what do you think?
And I thought it was, like, so good. And
I know.
She was actually really knowledgeable, and she's just not a Marxist, right? And, like,
But she knew what it was. She actually understood it.
She knew what it was, and she was really honest about what her positions were.
Yeah.
In that conversation, more honest than I heard almost any of the candidates be on the stage.
Oh my God, totally.
Their actual position.
Totally.
And she's also like really not wrong about how she, above anybody, was like hitting that point about you need to like details didn't win the Republican, like details didn't win us Trump.
Right.
She's obviously read like Naomi Klein, because she also said like Trump wasn't created in a vacuum. She like said that.
Yeah. Exactly.
She knows some stuff.
Yeah, and she basically, I'm going to say this, and this might piss off some people. I don't think they actually this show, but there are some people out there who are like poo-pooing like socialists for liking Mike Gravel, who didn't even make it to the debates, or like doing the Marianne Williamson irony thing, or even like the like Yang Gang kind of stuff. But I have to say, first off, this is the only time like no one's gonna actually vote for her, so calm down. And honestly, she kind of gave the performance that I wish Bernie had on a lot of issues. The fact that she brought up how foreign policy affects the immigration system and how that affects the labor market, to me, is the argument that we need to, like, to me, that is like the holistic internationalist working class approach to how we should deal with this, right? She's just not a Marxist, which is fine. I don't think Bernie is either, I don't know. Like, I actually kind of liked that. But what do you think about her sort of, first off, I Skyped with my mom, and I was talking to her. I mean, if you guys don't know this, my mom she's a new age mom. Like she works in the new age industry and also lives a very new age informed life. She's on that new age shit. I'm more the new waver because I like new wave. But so I Skyped with her, and I was like, because I just wanted to know. It's like, who Marianne Williamson is, and she was like, "What the fuck? How do you not know who Marianne Williamson is? She's a literal miracle worker. That is like her job." And honestly, she kind of worked a miracle on me. So what do you think?
I'm a big fan. I'm a big supporter.
Yeah.
I think I really liked what she was saying. Like, I like the idea of her being like, people are holistic. People are spiritual beings. Mm-hmm. Like, we are connected in all these ways besides these sort of like, honestly, like what I heard her say, maybe she didn't say this, but like Eurocentric, like intellectualism. Yeah. She was like, we're connected on different levels, just those. And so we need to relate.
Kind of an anti-borders kind of sentiment in a way.
It was like speaking against, she was speaking against an obsession with this. And she talks about this, like the external, like an obsession with, she's an anti-Buttigieg.
She is, yeah.
Everything based on data, and data will get you what he's got in South Bend.
Exactly.
Which is like, you're only catering to the people who benefit from capitalism and can participate in capitalism in a way that's going to benefit you.
Right.
And she, either it's through socialism or it's through like her love frame.
I'm an MLM, Marxist-Leninist, Marianist.
Yes, but like you got to replace that inverse incentive.
Yeah.
That puts people on the bottom and puts capital on top. And I think that she sort of was arguing about that, but it was in a different way. It was in a spiritual way, right? Like she was like, we need to prioritize like humanity, which to me is ultimately like, I'm for that.
Yeah, totally. I think it's very relatable. I mean, sure, she's a little kooky or whatever, but like, I don't know.
Who among us?
Yeah. Who's not a little kooky? Like,
isn't
what?
A little kooky?
I don't know. Like, I actually, I feel like there's been a lot of projection onto her. And also it's reminding me of how, honestly, I'm gonna coin this, but there's a lot of like new age and skeptical like hate that pervades liberals. I have to say, and now vaccinate your kids, guys. Obviously, vaccinate your kids. It particularly helps me. It particularly helps me. Like, for my job, I remember once, like, we had to, like, I don't know, like, the play gym was closed because they were afraid of a fucking measles.
Somebody had rubella.
Yeah, exactly. We're bringing back whatever the fuck killed Napoleon, you know? But, like, I feel like I heard this as, like, a thing. People were like, oh, I bet she's an anti-vaxxer. The thing is, like, I hope she isn't because, again, vaccinate your kids. But what would be the big deal if she was really? Like, in the grand scheme of what some of these fuckers want, like, I mean, she's an anti-vaxxer, but, like, some of these people literally want to start nuclear war.
Yeah.
Like, let's get our priorities straight.
It's not my worst case scenario.
Not all anti-vaxxers. I don't know. Yeah, she's, so Marianne, I'm a fan. I'm a really big fan.
Big supporter, big fan.
Yeah, I hope she makes it to another debate. I should have given her money, but also I know she's right.
She could fund it. Yeah, she's fine.
It's
individual donors, doesn't she?
I have no idea.
We could donate $1.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
We're on that stage again. I'd do that.
If that's like whatever, like the bare minimum, most efficient way I could. I think she is going to be the sort of left fringe candidate. I know some people wanted Mike Gravel too, and I think that maybe would have been good. But I kind of like that Marianne brought a kind of a different energy than another angry.
Definitely,
senator.
she had something original to say.
Yeah, why not?
Can we talk over Swalwell? Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Can we talk about this is amazing to me. I don't think we've actually mentioned the actual front runner in the race, Bernie Sanders. No, I'm kidding. Joe Biden. Joe Biden. That was real bad.
I was expecting worse, and I was honestly disappointed. He did terrible. Apparently, he, like, I read, like, a headline, so I don't know. Like, I didn't read the article, but the headline was, like, you know, Biden's, like, campaign, like, people or whatever, like, tried to prep him, and he refused on certain issues. And I was like, yeah, no shit. Like,
he was
that
winging it.
That guy didn't know what he was saying, and he always just says the weirdest shit. And like, he just does not stand for anything except for whatever he used to do.
Exactly.
Like, he's just obsessed with like saving face or something. I don't know what it is. Like, it's so hard to be like. He argued for fucking like against federalism for like race issues.
He said,
like, I'm actually
control.
Like, I'm like actually not like fully anti-states' rights, but like not for fucking race stuff, dude.
Yeah, like I think we have like fucking honestly like Reconstruction never actually finished. Like we got a lot of work to do, so maybe we should fucking not give up and like what? He said that he voted against busing because that they should have left it to the states. Yeah, exactly. The way he deflected when Kamala Harris was like, I was that little, which was, I have to say, really good move.
That hard.
That's like, honestly, like, if this was purely a TV show, just based off of the debates, Kamala Harris would be like the pro-antagonist now. But honestly, good that it's not, because, well, the fact that he was like, that was okay, because for my policy, I would have said it's totally fine for your city council to do that, but it's like, but you're actually just
doing it. That was the point.
Exactly.
Like, city council weren't doing shit.
It took like 20 years, bud.
Point, dude.
Yeah, exactly. It's pathetic.
Like, white leadership, like, overtly racist.
Yeah.
Like, Klan members were in city councils running shit, entrenched.
Exactly.
That's like why you need a policy. That's like why policy exists.
Right, exactly.
Like, move people who will not move themselves. It was so dumb. It's like, why hang on like that?
Disgusting, honestly. Like, it was to me, as someone who, like, I don't know, like, knows about this a little bit, and just like the basic sort of like, if you just sort of know purely just the history of the rhetoric around racism and around sort of white supremacy, this country, it wasn't a dog whistle. It was just like him saying, yeah, I'm going to use the same reasoning that racist. That was it. Yeah. And I really don't, I think after that, and as long as like he can't actually give a satisfactory answer, and I mean, I just don't think he can on it, like physically because of his weird ego, but also like Like, I just think the damage is done. I don't think primary now. If he
I
can't,
really hope not,
if he
because
can't get past this.
Gas City.
Yeah, exactly. And
He's how we lose.
Yeah.
He's the only way that like the Dems lose the election.
Yeah.
He is it. That's like, honestly, people are like, oh, I'm for Biden because he's electable. Like, I hear that constantly. I don't even know what that means. I think it means that they secretly like him and that they don't want me to know that they like him. But people will say that.
You know, can we talk about this elected? Because, like, that's definitely true. Like, I think once people think Biden, once they realize that he sucks, and then they're like, oh, this means he's unelectable, support will disappear because that's his.
That's his only thing that anyone. I have friends who are like, who are educated people who were Bernie 2016.
Yeah.
Who are for Biden.
They're so traumatized by Trump, right?
They're so traumatized, and most of these people are white, and so they're not actually thinking about how this country under Obama was not good for everyone.
Right.
It was comfortable for them because they felt safe and secure, when they felt like nicey, like everyone's talking the right words.
Exactly.
And that's what Biden provides, but now he's not going to even provide that.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Party's over. There's only space for one old white man. I know maybe I'm being a fucking pedant, but I always hated when people say that about Bernie. Not that he's not an old white man, but like literally.
He's also one of the most Jewish white dudes I've ever seen.
Exactly.
We're talking Ashkenazi, like that man is Ashkenazi. Like that is a Jew.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like my dad. Like, it's just, regardless, it's,
Grandpa.
Yeah, and also, like, again, his entire father's side of the family was murdered by Nazis. It's fine, though, he's just another white guy, right? Like, fucking who cares? Anti-Semitism is not on the rise.
Diversity.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, I know. Sorry, that's my pedant horse. But how do you think Bernie did? I thought he basically was just kind of like, he just...
Broke even.
Yeah, he kind of just did what he always does.
But he can't knock it out of the park. Because I mean, that debate was his debate. Like, every question, like, there was 4 or 5 questions. He controlled
the entire sort of, like, policy set and issue set that they were going to talk about.
But they were all, like, around Bernie.
Yeah.
Like, they would be like, Bernie Sanders has said, other candidates have said that they are socialists.
Yeah.
Like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
You said that you're not a socialist.
Right.
What do you think about that? Medicare for all, the fucking bill that he proposed. Like, this is he has set, I was talking to my friend, I was like, he set this stage. And when I talk to people, like some of the folks at my work or whatever, you know, they're like, oh yeah, I really like Bernie, but we can't have him. He cannot be the nominee. We can't vote for him for president. And I'm just like, what? Like, why are you people saying this? And I will say, hasn't he demonstrated the ability to like set a political goal and achieve it? Like more than anyone on this stage. Like he moved this party in a direction. Yeah. He has defined what it means to be progressive in 2019. He has defined it. You have proof. They asked, while he's on stage, they're asking questions about him, and he doesn't even get to say anything because it's not even considered him being invoked because he's like the fucking word Kleenex for fuck's
right,
like,
exactly.
He is just ever present, and his policies are like glued to him and his identity. Like, he's such a successful politician, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And like, when I say that to people, they do not disagree. Even people who are like, I wouldn't vote for him for president. It's like, they won't disagree. I'm like, well, what, hasn't he proven to you that he can fucking set goals and like change the conversation? They're like, yeah, but now that he's done that, like, I don't really think he can actually like complete the task. And I'm like, he's completed the task.
Yeah, like I don't.
He made all of you only want somebody who's like him.
Exactly. Like he set the standard. It's you know, there was like a lot of like talk about sort of how like when Bernie didn't drop out like conventions, talked about trying to get the party platform, and I kind of think in a way he actually did set political stage for the Democrats, and people act like people always say, what has he accomplished? What has he done? Yeah. It's like literally what you're watching.
He's actually like so idealist as a senator that he's barely passed any legislation.
Yeah.
That to me is not a good measure of what the president's going to be like.
Exactly.
Honestly, like
Yeah,
I don't care.
Totally. Yeah. Like, yeah, he was
in
in
that mandate. You elect Bernie Sanders, you better believe.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would be such groundswell and momentum.
Yeah.
Like people would feel like their voices were heard.
Yeah.
Like they would.
Yeah. It would empower so many of the social movements that have sort of come up in the past 10
who refuse to vote because they don't feel important.
And honestly, they kind of are not viewed.
They're not.
They're not. But like I think like a vote for a candidate like Sanders, just as a symbol to the people, to capital and to like everyone, honestly, who has a more privileged place in society economically, that there are movements that can say no. And that if you have someone in the White House who more in touch with the Sunrise Movement versus oil and gas,
yeah.
You have someone who has like a place in his White House for Cornel West instead of like the fucking like head of the like onion.
Yeah.
Like that's I'm sorry. Like I get it. It's not gonna solve all the problems, obviously. Like, duh. But like he's the first one to say that, and I think I'm still push on Bernie.
I'm a Bernie bro.
Yeah, broed up, bud.
All the way.
Yeah.
And it's just so weird to me to talk to people and to get their reaction to Bernie. Like,
yeah.
It's just so weird to me. Like, people will straight up be like, oh, yeah, I completely agree. Because, like, he's the only one who has, like, Marianne, obviously, too, but she has, like, maybe 0.5% of the, like... But who has a real principle.
And that's just because people get an extra vote if you open up your third eye.
Yeah.
So it's really even only like 2.5%.
Well, you know who else had an organizing principle? Fucking Trump.
Yeah, he
and
did.
You know who had one? Bernie Sanders, political revolution.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he stands for.
Yeah.
He's for, like, get corporations out of politics. That is, like, the number one thing that he stands for.
And that can happen in a lot of different ways. I mean, that's what Medicare for All is essentially. It's just like us grabbing like a sector of the economy and say no. That's I mean, and that's, to me, that's a good enough reason.
And he has like his tax plans are like, he's like, when people are like, how are you going to pay for Medicare for All? And he's like, tax you.
Yeah. And then people are like,
going to pay for it. And they're like, oh, but you're not supposed to tell me I'm going to pay for it. And it's like, well, don't you pay for healthcare now? Like, people, like, come on.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's not a plan. And it's like, it is a plan. It's called every, like, other country with, like, public healthcare systems.
Yeah, it's not a crazy thing.
It's really not that big of a deal.
So with those kinds of people, I feel like they might also be subject to this kind of critique that people have been saying that Bernie's. I feel like I've already seen this before. Like this, episode of Democrat.tv.
Hypocrite. He's like super consistent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like these fucking like professional commentators who I like hate were fucking saying that. Marcos, who used to be like the leader of the left wing media, like when I was like a teenager, is like fucking saying that shit. Like pathetic. Like I if that's your, I mean, I guess the thing is that, I guess what I wonder is, does someone like Bernie need to play to that? Or is the conceit sort of a value and sort of like, kind of like saying like, I'm just not going to do that. And I'm just not going to, like, I'm going to stay on message and I'm going to like basically root it in my like pretty coherent
we know what he
social
stands
democratic
for. Like,
worldview.
he's going to be consistent. And like, if people buy it, they buy it. And I think that it sort of just speaks to his, the genuine nature of him and his campaign. Like, and I don't know, for me, like, I get that it's not always going to be popular. It's not always going to win him votes. Like, he didn't see a bump in the polls. He's pretty consistent.
He's literally exact same.
Yeah, like, people like kind of know what he's doing and they get it. And like, the world is going to, this is what I think. The world is going to rise and fall around him because even these other candidates, like you think about candidates like Biden's been on the political stage for fucking hundreds of years, it seems like, and people still don't know what he stands for.
No.
That's why he goes up and down. That's why he goes up and down.
Yeah.
And that's why, Kamala goes up and down. People are like, oh, does she hate the death penalty? She loved the death penalty.
Right.
She hates gay people. Yeah. She loved gay people. Like, what the fuck? Like, because she, like, incarcerated the shit out of, like, people who were innocent, and, like, as Attorney General, like, defended the death penalty. People are like, she had to do her job. Even Bob fucking Ferguson, our AG, he supported legislation to make the death penalty illegal.
Yeah.
He put
you can go further. Yeah.
He put off death penalty cases.
That's a thing, though, that you hear, that sort of way of that sort of relationship to power that liberals will do, that I kind of, like, we hear them explain it, and it's just sort of like it's like a rationalization where it sort of shows that they don't believe that you change.
Well, and it's a couple things too, right? Like, people will probably fairly say that Kamala has, like, there's a lot more people staring at her every move than somebody like Bob Ferguson as an attorney general.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like, you have to stand for something.
Yeah.
And when you stand for something, you're consistent about that.
Yeah.
And like if you're going to say that you're for, like, reforming the criminal justice system, and you've had access to doing something about it for so long, like, she had a mandate. She was an attorney general. Like, that's a lot of power. That's not in fucking California. Like, that's a lot of power.
Yeah.
And
like,
you tell me you didn't do one thing? You didn't do anything?
Right. It's like discretionary power, in the sense that it's basically, you can just say, this is what I
Well, and, like, Pete Holmes here in Seattle, the city attorney, I'm not saying, like, he's perfect. Like, obviously he's a prosecutor, but he refused to prosecute marijuana cases before marijuana was decriminalized in Washington State.
Right. Yeah.
Kamala Harris did not refuse to continue to incarcerate people who had violated the law. Like, she helped keep people in jail who violated marijuana laws. Like, even in California, where it was already legal to smoke medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Like, obviously,
you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. Like,
you didn't have to pass a law that criminalized, like, families, like, kids being truant.
You didn't have to. I mean, there's a clip going around, I've seen it, but it's her defending it, and it's because she couches it in that way of, like, oh, I bet that it'll make you want to go to school, ha ha ha. Like, she's, like, kind of being cute about it.
It's not cute to, like, basically support, like, a pipeline to jail.
Yeah,
because that's what that does. It's like you're criminalizing a family over their kid who they're already having a hard time supporting. There's a lot of reasons why that happens, but I can tell you there's a couple like socioeconomic reasons why that happens, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to be involved in that. But
right, exactly.
If you're a progressive, like, you wouldn't want to be involved in that, but you're not actually progressive.
Right.
Like, that's my problem with most of these candidates. Like, they're not even real progressives. They just know that you're supposed to say certain things because Bernie, and like, they know that Hillary was, like, not exciting because she wasn't progressive enough.
So they're just trying to be more progressive, but not actually do more progressive things. Just sort of
want to get money
in their sense.
They still want to get money.
Well, Harris went to a Wells Fargo fundraiser from Wells Fargo.
Didn't they like
the day after?
Yeah.
Like, come on. And I think that's why she went after Biden, just because, like, she was like, "There's a lot of money there. That should be mine. I'm gonna go take that."
Job. Like, she's not.
That's a good strategy. That's what I would do.
No, she's not. She is clearly intelligent, and she is clearly a killer prosecutor. Like, she was prosecuting him. Like, she always is like that, right? When she does her questioning in the legislature, like, she's powerful. Like, she's very smart. She is not consistent, and she does not toe a progressive line consistently.
No, I think it's the most raised her for the Medicare for All thing, but then, like, the next day said that, oh, I thought you meant abolish my personal medical. So, like, she's
like the third time she's done that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just say that you're not for the bill, because you're not. And it's so, to me, it's just so, like, slick, just like and polished.
Like, all these fucking front runners who are talking,
they're all
in their mouth. And I don't know why Kamala is doing that, because I actually, like, when she was in her early days, I actually thought she was kind of interesting. And granted,
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about her record as an attorney general.
No, why would you?
On the federal stage, like, she's been very effective. She's gotten a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
She's been very active on issues that I think are really important. And it's just too bad.
It's a bummer. And we're going to be seeing more of her. So get ready.
What was her... So she got a big bump.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that didn't go to Bernie.
Bernie is the exact... Here's the thing. I think it was literally 5% of Biden's voters went to Harris, and then 1% of them, and everyone else is exactly... Because Warren got a 1-point bump.
I saw
Harris
a bunch
went
of
up by 5.
people who voted for... who were supporting Biden, their second choice was Bernie.
Yeah, no, that's still... Well, the thing is, that poll exists, but if you look at what happened, though, actually, not their intent, but when they're actually polled and they get a different sample, it seems like Harris got the most of a raise and Biden. So I'm assuming those are a lot of the... Mm-hmm. But maybe that's a statistical anomaly. I don't know. I didn't...
Try to come up with a criticism of Bernie that actually sounds like that bad.
Yeah,
I mean, challenge your listeners.
I mean, my main criticism of Bernie is he's not like, like a fucking
raging,
like commie, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
But it's just that's not I don't know. He's gonna basically be at like maybe then like.
Here's my thing. We'll move around him. The wind will change around him.
He's like a rock.
Solid.
He's a Yiddish rock.
Yeah, he will be solid, and then
he's
when
gonna gather moss because he's gonna be solid.
When Biden gets like I don't know, doing some nasty shit.
Yeah, I think
right there. Do you think they'd give it to Kamala Harris before they give it to Bernie?
Oh yeah, 100%. Oh my God, no, totally. I mean, she is the that just a little bit younger California,
Yeah.
Like Biden's got that fake. They're not even, but they just sort of like light beer. We're working class kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like Biden's like a balloon slowly. So to me, it seems like the hierarchy is they would probably they don't like. I think it's going to come down to Warren, Harris, at least right now.
Here's my thing: is people just need to fucking get over it. Like, I'm 31 and I've only lived through I lived through Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, Trump. But even I know. It's done. We're done. Stop voting for things that you don't believe in. Stop voting for. Don't say electability. That means what you think other people are gonna do. What do you want to do? What do you think is good? Aren't we done with this bullshit?
Yeah. I'm just gonna do what they do.
People, so many people, I'm just sick of it saying, oh yeah, I agree with everything Bernie says. I like Bernie, I'm for Bernie, but we can't actually have Bernie. So I'm supporting Biden. What? That's crazy. Look at the fucking polls. Bernie beats Biden out against Trump.
Yeah, he does.
In Michigan.
Yeah. And I think there's a formulation that happens in political science where it's this idea that the more your position are your opponent, that then means that you're going to attract more of their people.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's not actually how it works because there's so many people who don't vote, and there's just so many other things, and also it's not taking for the account that some people just personality or how their personality melds with their vision, their politics, which is basically the Bernie. And I mean, it's populism, right? And that doesn't take account for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm brother Bernard, but I'm a Marianne. So sweetie Ari, thank you so much for doing this. I have to
talk to me.
I missed a FaceTime with my wife who's on a road trip, so I need to go do this. Yeah, because I gotta go to bed. Yeah, I will.
All right, thanks for talking to me, Ben.
Of course. Talk to you later. Bye. This has been Unpopular Front, the podcast. For more episodes, go to unpopularfront.com. Follow me on Twitter at BENUDASHEN. Still trying to get the Unpopular Front username because someone else has it. You can follow our guest / contributor / friend, IRL friend, Ari at LuckyAMR. And like us on Facebook at facebook.com/unpopularfront. For the Left and Loud, this is Unpopular Front.